Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maya Berry. I'm the Executive Director of the Arab American Institute. Welcome to what we are calling Arab American Census Week. Delighted to have those of you who are going to be joining us live for this, and for those of you who will watch it later as a recording. The 2020 census is an incredibly important undertaking for our entire country. It is also incredibly important for those communities that are hard to count, traditionally labeled hard to count. Arab Americans are among those. And we are doing a conversation each day this week focused on making sure that we support getting an accurate and full count of our community. I am delighted to have with us today Dr. Rita Stephan, who is currently with the State Department in MEPI, but previously served at the U.S. Census Bureau and is an expert on everything demographics related to Arab Americans. So this conversation could not be had with a better person to explain to us why it is important to complete the sentence, first of all, and second of all, how Arab Americans should fill out the ancestry or the race and ethnicity question. And Rita, as I refer to the ancestry, because I'm still thinking based on the old form. So maybe one of the things we can start with, Rita, is to sort of explain how we got to where we are today with the 2020 census question regarding race and ethnicity.
Sure. Thank you, Maya, and thank you all who are watching. If you guys remember, those of you who are old enough, in 2000, we had the long form and the short form. But that was replaced with something called the American Community Survey that is now going on continuously. So there's no long form. It's been 20 years since we've had the long form. Instead, we do have the census that is happening this every 10 years, the decennial census. And it is very important to pay attention to how we fill it out, because every response counts today. It didn't used to count in 2010 as much. So how does that work? In the long form, we had the long form had the ancestry question where it says what's your ancestry, and that's the only place where Arab Americans could have said anything about their heritage. That went away. That's with ACS. In 2010, we didn't have, it was only check the race question, and many of you actually checked some other race and put in your national origin or ancestry. That got tabulated, but got tabulated under the race questions. So today, after so much research and so much work, to give you an understanding, the OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, only recognizes 5 races: white, Black or African American, Asian, and Native Americans in Alaska Hawaiian. Hispanic is not a race, it is an ethnicity. Nowhere on these you will find Arab Americans or Middle Easterners. However, Arab Americans and Middle Easterners are considered white according to OMB Directive 15 as of 1997. This is something that we tried with working with AAI to revise over the last 10 years, and really had many stakeholders contribute to that. However, today we are still with that form. The one change that the Census Bureau did do is that they included ethnicities or ancestries under those race boxes or race check boxes. So today, no matter where you check, as long as you write as many ancestries as you do, they will be tabulated. Why it is important to write those ancestries is very important for medical field, for education, for civil rights. I highly encourage you not to go with Arab Americans, even though this is the second highest, largest population. It doesn't give us enough data. Go with your national heritage. This way, Arab American Institute and other institutes can form it all under Arab Americans, but it's important to know if you're Iraqi and, let's say, Egyptian, Iraqi, Egyptian, and some heritage of Saudi Arabian. Put all that in. that will be tabulated. Each ancestry has a code that then is tabulated and counted, and it goes as far as every city that we can find out where people are and all that. This is better for services. We're not being recognized as a minority group, but this is a great tool for us. This is the largest and the best available tool to count Arab Americans who are severely undercounted.
So, Rita, I'm going to take us one step back. Immediately after the 2010 census, there was an attempt similar to the one that had been done for 2000, 1990, which is the first decennial census that Arab Americans were census partners with the Census Bureau officially to try to establish a better count of our community. There was an attempt to create a Middle Eastern North African category, a MENA category, that would be added to the census specifically as a checkbox. And I want our viewers we've spent a lot of time educating folks about, regrettably, the failure of getting it added by 2020. But I want to take you back to what you just said about the difference between 2010 and what's happening in 2020 now. Our efforts to create a MENA category were specifically a new ethnic category, not a racial one. Arab Americans can be Black, they can be white, they can be brown, they can identify racially any way they want. So we're very much like the Hispanic community, you correctly pointed out that it's an ethnicity. And we've been asking people, the Yalla Count Me In campaign, which you can visit at yallacountmein.org. There's a specific fact sheet about how to fill out the census with regards to race and ethnicity. In that form, we specifically tell folks, as you pointed out, provide for us your national origin. So, for example, I checked it off as other. I then added Lebanese, Arab. But I want to emphasize, and I want you to get into the nitty-gritty about the codes a little bit, that if I just put Arab, it doesn't allow us to arrive at the same disaggregate data that we need. So tell us more about that difference from 2010 to 2020.
So in 2010, if you had put in the same answer, Maya, that you provided under other Lebanese/Arab, you would have been corrected and moved up to the white race. And because under OMB Directive 15, this is where you belong. All Americans, or the population, not necessarily American citizen, anybody who has heritage in North Africa and the Middle East is counted as white. So the Census Bureau would have moved you up to white and still counted your Arab code, given you an Arab code under white. Today, what changed is that they would keep you under other, and that code is for Arab and for Lebanese is counted as well. So they're going to count the other category, and they are going to count as well the Lebanese category and the Arab category, and that will be counted as reporting more than one response. And the number doesn't add up to 100%, but it gives us an accurate number of how many people reported being Lebanese or being Arab or being Palestinian. I want to say the difference between this and the American Community Survey is this is the 100% count. This is a census for nationwide. The American Community Survey, for instance, going to an area like all of Michigan, they would have only sampled about 150 people for the entire state of Michigan. And that really is not as representative and gives us a higher margin of error. However, census is door-to-door 100% count, and that's why it's very important.
And that's a huge difference. I can't,
Absolutely.
What you're saying is incredibly important.
I say if this was a medication, I would not take it. The margin of error for our community is up to 35%. That is only 2/3 of the time it works. It's accurate. And if this was medicine, say only 2/3 of the time it works, you wouldn't take it. So definitely, and sometimes the margin of error is larger than the results. So definitely, we need to know the accurate number. And currently, our population is at 2.1 million people counting wise. And I joke that I and Maya alone know more than 2 million Arab Americans. So Definitely, we're way undercounted.
The 2.1 million is the census estimate, and the Census Bureau, having been a partner with us for many years, also acknowledges a dramatic undercount when it comes to our community. We put that number closer to 3.7, but Rita is absolutely correct, which is that we need the actual data and able to arrive at an accurate count. Now, I know we're under a bit of a delay on Facebook, but we do want to take your questions for Dr. Stephan. So Rita, we have one that I want to start with. Why is Arab American less ideal for our community in terms of data?
This comes to us from our health colleagues. And specifically, when I was at the Census Bureau, I had people reach out to us and say, we're trying to figure out, let's say, rates of diabetes among Iraqis. We know it's high. However, we have the numerator, we don't have the denominator. So while, no one's going to come and take, Iraqi out of Arab, it's really having the nuances and the details helps our health professionals, helps our education and the community service professionals, like access, reach out to the right population. It's just better tabulation, better data for us. And honestly, at the end, they all would fall under Arab or MENA or both, so you don't lose anything.
Right. I would emphasize the way we pull the data is that we specifically go to countries of origin and take the 22 Arab countries and arrive at the Arab American number. So we don't lose anything, we gain by being able to do that disaggregation of data. That's a critical piece for us. Rita, I want to
tell you that, for instance, let me just say, for instance, we know there are 538,000 Lebanese today in the United States and 276,000 Arab Americans. Well, that doesn't tell me what they are. When I'm trying to help with the heritage, we have speculations. Some people of Palestinian backgrounds, they might say, they might refer to themselves as Arabs, but we don't know. It really helps us with get nuanced data.
Right. So we've got another question. Would it be more effective to write in Arab or write in, for example, Lebanese or Palestinian, which is sort of similar to the conversation we're having? So I'll let you answer it again.
Lebanese and Palestinian, absolutely, and as many heritage. And I want to say also for the ethnic communities within Lebanese and Palestinians and others. So if you have a background that is your Assyrian or Chaldeans or Kurd or Amazigh, please write that as well. Add that, because that gets counted as well.
When you talked about the tabulation of those figures, that's the point, is there's a code there and we have the ability to pull that number if it's coded accurately. So as long as it's provided, it can be counted.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me ask you, Rita, you got your form. How did you fill it out? Just walk us through that process.
Oh my goodness. Well, I filled it out online, and
which is a first for 2020.
Yes, it's the first, and it got tested, and it's absolutely the way to do it. We identify as white, my family, and so under white we collect Syrian, clicked white and checked Syrian and Lebanese, and I am also of Assyrian heritage, so I included that as well. For me, my husband is 100% Lebanese, as he says. So for his, because you will have for each family member, and so it's by individual in the household. So for him, he said Lebanese, and the children got to have both, and this is very important that we also count the children. I know some families will say, but my children are Americans. Yes, I know, but they're also the heritage. This is what helps us count.
We are actually devoting one of our briefings conversations to the Kid Count campaign, specifically because of the number of kids that are undercounted. I know that Rita has 2 teenagers, but if she had 2 newborns, the point is you count every single person in the household that is with you. So that's a super important piece.
That's important. It is residents in the household. So whoever is living with you in the household, they don't have to. The citizen status does not matter. If they're visiting with you, let's say I have my mother living with me now, but her household is in Texas, I count her because it is at the moment of taking the census who's in that household then and there, and that's what should be counted. Don't count them if they're coming for coffee only.
We made a video about that. We actually made a video. A question about what if you are part Lebanese and part Palestinian, or dual multiple origins?
List them all. I tell you, when I was at the census, we have had codes that go really in detail. So part Palestinian, part Lebanese, you write Lebanese and you write Palestinian, or click those. But the census data is really rich. They even say from Beirut. Don't write from Beirut because that will get tabulated as under Lebanese. But let's say part Jordanian, part Irish. Go ahead and do that because that will still count, even if partial heritage is Arab. Please go ahead and do that.
Rita, a question: will detailing ethnicity help us get better language resources?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is really the reason it's Public Law 74, which makes it obligatory to provide all the voting information and publicly provided information in a language of the population if that population reaches a certain threshold. So we definitely want to make sure that, that's exactly why we count those languages and ethnicities.
We have a question about can we get a hold of the data relating to our community? And I will partially answer that by saying that the Arab American Institute Foundation is a partner with the Census Bureau as a CIC. We're a Census Information Center, and we provide that data request. But tell us a bit, both in terms of when you were there and subsequently, how was the data used by researchers, by media, by others? When we tell people it's important to do this, why?
I think we do have a question coming in from, do you want me to answer that first or yours?
Go ahead with that one first.
Yes. So the question is, if I am understanding correctly, if I'm an Arab American and adult born in America, but my father is from Baghdad, Iraq, I should write an Arab American. I should not write an Arab American, but rather Iraqi. Exactly. This question used to replace the question before that was adopted in the before 1980, which was parents' birthplace, parent place of birth. And that question, because we had so many people in the United States who were no longer only second generation, that got replaced with ancestry or ethnicity. But today you can write that in the census, in the bar provided under the box, under the checkbox, whether white, black, other, whatever you choose, do write of Arab, Iraqi ancestry, and other ancestries, if not just Iraqi. Go ahead. So the process of, to get to your question, Maya, when we get responses at the Census Bureau, there are some that are already automatically tabulated, so common responses. But then there were a lot of cleanup. There was a lot of cleanup to do. For instance, what I worked on was making sure that we have 2 Yemens. We no longer have 2 Yemens, and we might have 2 Yemens now. But we combined the Yemens. The Census Bureau the data had not been updated since the unification of Yemen. Also, there was a lot of confusion on how do you count ethnicities and ethno-sectarian groups. So Copts, how would you count them? And for instance, Phoenicians used to be counted as European. So we corrected that, and we worked with so many scholars. So in a way, we sought scholars in on the region to correct our data, and then we took that data that is now, in much better shape, and made it available in the best format online, which is now, this is updated. If you want to get your tabulation, it's data.census.gov. But I have to say that most of the requests that we used to get were from health professionals and public service professionals. And then one time we actually had to do a research to see which federal agency uses our data. And we were so proud to know that the Office of Civil Rights in DHS uses our data. So it is people who are trying to protect our civil rights who are putting that data to best use. And I know that a lot of people say, well, the FBI, this and that. And I say, believe me, the FBI does not need the Census Bureau's help. They can get that data on their own. So really, this is for much better, much wider use, housing information, health information, absolutely.
In terms of the CIC data requests that we receive, as you correctly pointed out, a lot of it is health research, but we also get a lot from media outlets who are looking for stories and information about concentrations of Arab Americans, and a lot of academics who write those incredibly important journal articles that we all need that tell the story of our community and provide the research on that. So that's important. Let's take some more questions. We have one about privacy issues, which actually will be covered on Thursday's session. But I welcome anything you want to add to that, Rita, if you'd like. And then to piggyback on that, do you have to be a citizen to fill out the census? Can you still fill it out if you're a permanent resident? This has been an issue as this census was deeply politicized this year. So talk a bit about that.
Okay, so let me take one question at a time. The privacy issue, I want to say that the Census Bureau goes out of its way to make sure that the data cannot be linked back to the respondent, and they scramble that data. And even the data that's made available to the public, it doesn't really match the individual. And this is considered top secret. Not many people work in that field, and there's a mathematical formula that only very specialized people use. However, if we say we have 3 families that live in a zip code, then it's not very hard to find out, which are the 3 families or 3 households that are Arabs. So this is where it's like when you have fewer members of our population living in an area, they're going to be easily identified, and that's just by the fact that there's not that many families there. So that's the question. But the Census Bureau goes out of its way to make sure that the privacy is guaranteed, and any request that comes to the Census Bureau is published online. So you will find out, even if, let's say, FBI comes and says, I want some data, that will be published. That's public record, and the Census Bureau puts that in the website, on their website, so you can access that. To answer the question about citizenship has been asked for years on the census, on the American Community Survey, ACS. So that's not a new question. However, it wasn't asked of every person on the census. It was asked on in this survey format. No, you don't have. In fact, it's a survey, the census of residents of the population. You can be foreign student living in a dormitory, that will still count. It's really because the purpose of it, other than voting, which is, yes, understandable, it is also public services. This data is used to put infrastructure in cities, do population growth estimates, all these things that don't just depend on the citizens, because if you have foreigners also living there, or visitors or whoever, they also need sewer system, they also need water, etc. So definitely it doesn't make a difference. It's residents residents. Even if your mother's visiting you from back home, that's resident. How do Arab American of Afro descent fill out the census? Very common question that we receive. It is how you identify. So the question is, how about, North Africans, Moroccans, Tunisian, Algerians, Libyan, and Egyptians. Before 1990, the Census Bureau adopted the 10% rule. That is, if more than 10% of the population did not identify with the rest of the racial category, then that entire population got put in some other race. So Moroccans before 1990 were other race. However, Directive 15 in 1997 said that Moroccans, Algerians, Tunisians, Libyans, and Egyptians are white, not Sudanese. And the problem with Sudanese not fitting here or there is that they too don't have 90% of the population identifying as one race. So they are classified as some other race. However, no one can come today in 2020 and tell you what your race is. The Census Bureau has changed the way they're adopting, their approach to race. So if you check the African American Black box, this is where you will remain. You will not be corrected to move to another box. But let's say you are both Sudanese and Palestinian. Where do you check? Doesn't matter where you list Palestinian or Sudanese. You can check both white and Black if you want, and put the Palestinian under white and the Sudanese under Black, or white and some other race, or Black and some other race, or all in some other race, or all under Black, or all under white. All of this works. These are two different counts. If you check more than one box for the race question, you will be identified as someone who identifies with one or more race. And that's a special category. About 4% of the population is multiracial.
And so to be clear, just for those that are with us, the racial category you identify with is what you check. For us, the most important piece of that is your national origin or ethnicity. So as Rita said, add Sudanese, add Palestinian, add Iraqi, however you identify for national origin ethnicity, so that we can gather that data about you. And I just want to make one point about the privacy piece. We're going to be covering this on Thursday at 1 o'clock, also on Facebook Live. So join us back again for that conversation. We're going to raise the issue of differential privacy. So it speaks to the point about the neighborhood with 3 Arab American households and how folks can get around that issue. And it also will emphasize the importance of understanding that there's a $250,000 fine. And it's a very serious violation to violate privacy, but we'll talk more about that on Thursday. Rita, there's another question in terms of hard to count communities, including Arab Americans. In your experience, what is the best way to reach them? And how do you think COVID in particular is impacting the count this year?
Usually the problem we have with our community is trust. It's not that, we're migrant population. It's really, do we trust the enumerator at the door, or do we trust the form that is coming to us from a government entity? And really, I think if you have questions about that, please go ahead and do reach out to Arab American Institute or other institute and ask these questions, because they are really working hard at making sure that this form is highly protected and your privacy is protected and nothing will be used against you. So I highly recommend that you do that if you have any doubts. Now, how do we make sure that, in COVID, there's the online, and today I say, even my own mother who's 75 is using online forms. So there's definitely something that we can get used to. This is, I think it's even wider reach, because almost everybody has a phone and a mobile phone that we can work on or use that to fill the forms. The sense it is your legal obligation to fill out the form. Although the Census Bureau has not arrested anybody, but if you do not fill out the form, it's a federal violation. And we because it is very important. So with COVID now services, it's very important to know if we need to provide health services, how many people of our communities get affected by COVID. This is very important data for us to gather. Another thing that I find very interesting is the use of argile or water pipe. We all say we're non-smokers, but we all smoke argile. This is really helpful for us to know, how many of us are there and in a community, so the health professionals can reach out to us and make sure that our health is in good shape. I have
let's get a quick question on if you are not fluent in English, can you fill it out in Arabic?
So the Census Bureau does provide translation of the form, and it is not for you not to fill it out in that language, but for you to understand the question. And if you do not have that translation, please do reach out to the Arab American Institute or other local organizations that those forms are available online. There are guides online on how to fill these out in your language. So absolutely, all this information is available in Arabic.
Right. And then do you think, a question that I love, thank you for asking it, do you think the MENA category will be approved and added into the 2030 census?
I've never seen in the past any campaign get so much support by its own population. And when I was at the Census Bureau, we worked on the MENA category because it was inclusive of all those who identify as Arabs and those who don't. Those who identify as, Lebanese and those who identify as Phoenicians, let's say. And really, it got the widest support from the community. We had a coalition of almost every group and community group. And even when we had a Federal Register request for notice, I remember my census colleagues saying that we shut down the system. They had to hire a special person just to handle the comments received for this. So this has wider support. Please understand that the reason the MENA category did not pass in 2020 was a design problem, because I know that the Arab American Institute asked the Census Bureau to test the category as an ethnicity. However, it was only tested as part of a combined question that is combining Hispanic origin and race, and it was only tested as a racial question, which is not what the community asked for. And that is that's exactly what, now we have an opportunity to actually go for the next 10 years and work on a better design.
Rita, thank you so much. We went 3 minutes over our allotted time, but I just want to go through and provide a real quick summary. If you have not filled out your census, please do so now. YellowCountMeIn.org has every resource you could imagine that's needed for this. As Rita walked us through the process, you could fill it out online. You can actually call the Census Bureau and do it over the phone if you'd like, or if you were one of those households that received a paper form, you could fill it out that way as well. We ask that you check any racial category in terms of how you identify. That's up to you. But within that, please provide national origin or ethnicity so we're able to gather better data on our folks. We have a hotline, Yellow Count Me In hotline, that's available for anyone who needs help filling out their census form. It's 833-333, let me start again, 833-333-6864. It's actually 833 Aduni and 3 for the Ain. So please call us with any questions that you may have. I will say that the MENA category piece is incredibly important to us. The self-enumeration period will wrap up on October 31st. And we are engaged on securing that category for 2030 as of November 1. And I should also point out that we actually ended up, we're currently in a lawsuit with the Office of Management and Budget about a FOIA that we did with regards to the MENA category and why it wasn't included in the 2020 census. So that is something that we continue to work on. Rita, thank you again. If we still have you, you're frozen on my screen, but if we still have you, are there any parting words you want to provide? I think we might have lost Rita. Thank you, everybody. Let's talk again tomorrow.